The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is one of the greatest mysteries in modern aviation. From its enigmatic takeoff to its sudden disappearance, this case has captured the attention of the entire world, generating theories ranging from mechanical failure to deliberate hijacking. As the details unravel, disturbing questions arise about what really happened that fateful night. In today's video, we'll explore the latest investigations, testimonies, and theories surrounding this enigma, seeking answers to a mystery that still lingers in the collective memory. Join us on this journey through the facts and speculation that have kept the international community in suspense for years. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe to our channel. It's free. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Malaysian Flight 370. The mystery began in the early hours of a March morning in 2014. It was 12:41 a.m. on March 8th, to be precise. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was preparing for takeoff and departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Headed for Beijing Capital International Airport in China in case 370 requests level 370, we're ready. The trip wasn't supposed to take long, just over 6 hours. The plane assigned to this flight was a Boeing 777-200ER. The plane wasn't new. It had been flying for 12 years and was registered 9MMRO. At the controls was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old veteran pilot with extensive experience. Captain Zahari had flown for 18 years and had logged 365 hours in the air. He knew this route well and had a deep passion for flying, which he often shared on social media. Joining him was First Officer Fari Abdul Hamid, with 2,763 flight hours under his belt. It was meant to be a training flight for him, but tragically, it would be his last. Also on board were 10 dedicated flight attendants whose role was to ensure the comfort and safety of the 227 passengers, including 5 children. Most of the passengers were Chinese, but the flight also carried a diverse group from several nations, including Malaysians, along with travelers from Indonesia, Australia, India, France, the US, Iran, Ukraine, Canada, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Russia, and Taiwan. As the plane took off from runway 32R, it climbed into the dark skies. Heading northeast across the South China Sea, once the plane reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, the crew confirmed its altitude with Kuala Lumpur. Air traffic control sent a routine goodnight call shortly afterward as the plane approached Vietnamese airspace. Captain Zahari responded with, "Good evening, Malaysian 370, a typical response for airspace transitions. Then something strange happened as the plane entered Vietnamese airspace and disappeared from radar. The fact that the signal disappeared was unusual. The fact that the transponder, which chirped every time it was hit by air traffic control radar, went silent. This sudden loss of communication rendered the plane invisible to radar systems, leaving ground personnel unaware of its location or status. What made this situation even stranger was the lack of weather-related calls or warnings from military and civilian radars. But strangely, the plane was no longer following the planned route. It first turned southwest and then changed direction northwest over the Malacca Strait. No one could explain it. Why was it a mechanical failure, a deliberate action, or something else entirely? During this chaotic period, a pilot from another flight attempted to contact Flight 370 using the international distress frequency to transmit an air traffic control message asking Flight 370 to respond. The other pilot made brief contact, but the exchange was unintelligible. All they could hear were garbled sounds and static, adding another layer of mystery to an already troubling situation. While the world slept, an unprecedented mystery unfolded in the sky. A plane simply vanished before continuing like this video. Chapter 2. The Disappearance. In the early hours of a peaceful morning, something shocking happened at 2:22 a.m. when the Malaysian military, constantly scanning the skies with radar, suddenly lost track of the plane. This happened over the vast, dark waters of the Andaman Sea. The loss of radar contact was a serious sign suggesting something had gone terribly wrong. Then, at 2:40 a.m., the situation became even more alarming. Air traffic control contacted Malaysia Airlines with incredible news. Flight 370 had disappeared and could no longer be located. Malaysia Airlines was deeply concerned and immediately began contacting the surrounding air traffic control centers. The planes were gathering information. Their priority was to determine where Flight 370 had gone. At 5:30 a.m., as the sun began to rise, search efforts intensified and focused on two areas: the South China Sea and the Gulf of Thailand, the last places where the plane had communicated with air traffic control. The urgency to locate the plane was palpable, and all available resources were being used in the search. In the days following the disappearance, the media was abuzz with reports that many people claimed to have seen the plane. A mix of witnesses, including fishermen, oil rig workers, and residents of Kuda Huadu Atoll in the Maldives, reported sightings of an aircraft resembling Flight 370. Some of these accounts were incredibly detailed. Near Cotab, on the coast of Peru, a fisherman reported seeing an aircraft flying unusually low over an unstable settlement site, 2,999 kilometers to the southeast. An oil rig worker had a terrifying experience. He described witnessing something burning in the sky that same morning. Vietnamese authorities took this report seriously and launched a search and rescue mission based on it. Meanwhile, Indonesian fishermen had a terrifying account of their own. They claimed to have seen a plane crash near the Strait of Malacca. 3 months later, a British woman sailing in the Indian Ocean had an equally chilling story. She reported seeing a plane engulfed in flames, which was both terrifying and unnerving. All these varied accounts made the mystery of Flight 370 even more intricate. Each narrative was unique, but all hinted at something unusual and tragic. There were many more questions than answers about the fate of the plane and its passengers. The search persisted, fueled by hope and the urgent need to uncover what happened in this sad chapter of aviation history. Initially, the search for the missing persons focused on the South China Sea. This focus was logical since the flight was expected to be in that area. However, everyone was caught off guard by a new revelation. Flight 370 had deviated from its planned course and was heading west. This development changed everything that indicated the plane was not where authorities believed it to be. Consequently, the search expanded to include the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. This was merely the beginning of a mystery that grew more baffling with each passing day. Crucial data emerged from signals the plane had transmitted to a satellite. These signals acted as hidden messages indicating the plane continued flying long after it disappeared from radar. This revelation was startling. The plane had been in the air for approximately 6 hours, and no one had any idea of its whereabouts. March 15th became a pivotal date in this development. A week after the plane's mysterious disappearance, a company called Inmarsat provided vital information. While it didn't pinpoint the plane's exact location, it offered valuable clues and suggested it could be in one of two regions. One possibility was that it flew south and potentially ended up in the Indian Ocean southwest of Australia. The other was that it veered north, encompassing an area from Vietnam to Turkmenistan. The search took a desperate turn, raising even more questions. Chapter 3. Search in Vain. When it became clear that the plane wasn't where they had initially focused, authorities decided to drastically alter their strategy. They abandoned efforts in the South China Sea, the Gulf of Thailand, and the Strait of Malacca, and shifted their attention to considering two new potential paths the plane could have taken. However, there was a major problem with these new routes. The northern route, which would have required the plane to cross nations such as Thailand and Kazakhstan, seemed implausible. Had the plane taken this path, it would have had to pass through heavily congested airspace. Monitored by military radars, nations in that area were confident that their radar systems would have detected an unknown aircraft flying through their airspace. Because of this certainty, they quickly ruled out the northern route as a viable option. With the northern route now eliminated, the search area expanded significantly and was divided into two main zones. The first zone was the Southern Arc, extending into the remote, deep waters of the Indian Ocean off the southwest tip of Australia. The second zone was even larger, encompassing regions of Southeast Asia, parts of Western China, and the Indian subcontinent. The expansion of the search area increased the complexity and uncertainty of the already difficult situation. On a particularly somber day, March 24, 2014, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak stepped forward to make a heartbreaking announcement to the world. With profound sadness, he revealed that, following an extensive analysis of the last signals from the missing aircraft, a tragic conclusion had been reached. This analysis was carried out with the assistance of experts from Inmarsat and the UK Air Accident Investigation Branch, who determined that the aircraft's final location before its disappearance was over the southern Indian Ocean. This discovery led to a grim conclusion. There were no suitable landing sites in this vast open sea. The painful conclusion was that the plane, along with everyone on board, must have plunged into the ocean. This incident marked a deeply sad chapter for those associated with Flight 370. The flight was carrying 239 people, and it seemed highly unlikely that anyone could have survived such a catastrophe at the time. This was the most devastating incident involving a Boeing 777. This unfortunate record was held by Flight 370 for 131 days until another tragic event occurred. When Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, another Boeing 777-200ER, was shot down on July 17, 2014. This second bombing claimed the lives of 298 people, surpassing the previous tragedy. The search for the missing Flight 370 became the most expensive undertaking in aviation history. It was an incredibly difficult task, primarily because the suspected crash site was in a very remote part of the ocean. A glimmer of hope emerged on April 6, 2014, when an Australian ship detected what appeared to be signals from the black box. These signals were picked up approximately 2,000 kilometres northwest of Perth, Western Australia. Inmarsat data corroborated the location of these signals. However, concerns arose as to whether these signals were actually from Flight 370, as the black box battery might be running low. A robotic submarine was deployed to investigate the area. This proved a daunting challenge. The signals had been detected over a wide area, and despite the submarine's best efforts, no debris was discovered. It was later suspected that the signals could have been potentially false, caused by a malfunction in the acoustic equipment used. The search continued resolutely until June 2015, but unfortunately did not yield any remains or debris from Flight 370. It wasn't until July 29, 2015, that a small glimmer of hope emerged. A section of the right wing called a flaperon was found on a beach on Reunion Island. This island is located about 3,700 kilometres west of where Australian authorities had been searching. In the Indian Ocean, over the next year and a half, countries including Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, Madagascar, and Mauritius revealed 26 more pieces believed to be from the plane. Of these, 3 pieces were confirmed to be from Flight 370, and 17 were highly likely from the same plane. 2 of these pieces originated from the interior, suggesting the plane had disintegrated. However, it was unclear whether this breakup occurred in flight or after impact with the water. A closer analysis of the wing fragments found, one on Reunion Island and one in Tanzania, provided new insights into the plane's final moments. It appeared the plane did not make a controlled landing, indicating it was not being steered for a smooth descent into the water. Some experts theorized that Flight 370 could have crashed into the ocean in a steep dive. In 2017, the governments of Malaysia, Australia, and China officially ceased the search for Flight 370. However, an American company, Ocean Infinity, received permission from the Malaysian government to continue the investigation. This protracted search lasted until May 2017, when the Malaysian Ministry of Transport announced the conclusion of this further effort. In 2018, a report from Malaysia suggested that Flight 370 may have been taken over deliberately rather than simply experiencing a malfunction. Chapter 4. A hijacked flight. In mid-2018, specifically in July, Malaysian authorities released what was considered their most comprehensive report yet on the baffling disappearance of Flight 370. This report was significant because it almost entirely ruled out the possibility of mechanical failure as a cause. Instead, it strongly implied that someone may have done it intentionally. He altered the flight path by taking manual control of the aircraft. Despite these strong indications, the team of experts working diligently on the case struggled to determine the exact reasons for Flight 370's disappearance, leaving no clues after the plane vanished. Many began to speculate about various scenarios, including the alarming possibility that it had been hijacked. This concern was not unfounded, as there were legitimate reasons to consider it. A disturbing discovery emerged. 2 passengers boarded Flight 370 with stolen passports. This revelation raised serious alarms. The passports in question, one from Austria and the other from Italy, had been reported stolen in Thailand within the previous 2 years. Interpol confirmed that these passports were listed in its database of lost and stolen documents. A major concern was that no one had checked them. These passports were checked against the database when they were reported missing. The situation gained further attention when Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, Malaysia's head of internal security, publicly criticized immigration officials in his country and expressed frustration at their inability to apprehend 2 passengers traveling with stolen European passports. Upon boarding the plane, these passengers had purchased one-way tickets through China Southern Airlines. Reports revealed that an Iranian caller from Bangkok specifically requested the lowest fares to Europe and paid for them in cash. Additional information soon emerged. The 2 individuals were young Iranians. One was 19 years old, and the other 29 had legally entered Malaysia on the last day of February using their genuine Iranian passports. Speculation began that these men might have been seeking asylum. The head of Interpol even mentioned that they were leaning toward believing this was not a terrorist act following the mysterious disappearance of Flight 370. The US and Malaysian teams launched an exhaustive background investigation into all the passengers on the manifest, meticulously exploring each individual's life stories, while the Chinese government scrutinized the Chinese nationals on board. The investigations led to a clear conclusion. There were no signs of violent or terrorist intent among any of the passengers. However, one individual briefly caught the eye. This individual was a flight engineer for a Swiss charter company. His aviation experience raised suspicions about his possible involvement as a hijacker, given his specialized knowledge. Amid all the theories and speculation, one particularly sensational notion emerged. Some suggested that Russian agents might have taken control of the plane by deliberately crashing it in the remote deserts of central Kazakhstan. The alleged motive was to distract from Russia's controversial actions in Crimea during that period. This theory evoked images of international intrigue and drama, although it lacked concrete evidence. As more details were revealed in the baffling case of Flight 370, one particular aspect captured public interest and sparked widespread discussion. Reports indicated that passengers' cell phones continued to ring long after the plane disappeared, in a frantic attempt to reach their loved ones. Distraught relatives repeatedly dialed the phones of those on board, sparking rampant speculation on various social media platforms as people wondered if there was a small chance the plane hadn't sunk to the bottom of the ocean. However, telecommunications experts quickly addressed this glimmer of hope, explaining that a phone ringing doesn't necessarily mean a connection is being established when a call is made to a cell phone. The network first attempts to locate the device to establish a connection. If it fails to connect after several attempts, the call is usually terminated. Therefore, the ringing heard by the families was likely just the network's effort to connect the calls. While this technical clarification offered some reassurance, it did little to ease the deep sorrow and uncertainty surrounding the fate of the missing plane and its passengers. The mystery surrounding Flight 370 deepened with its sudden change of course and the silence. Was it a case of hijacking or something else entirely? We've reached the end of this video. Tell us what you think in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so you don't miss out on future videos like this one. See you next time!